Good afternoon, everybody. Marty Richards with Richland Center Tourism here once again with our Sunday night version of Why Do We Call It That? So today we've returned back to Bear Valley, right on the eastern border of the county. We're almost into Sauk County. I could almost throw a stone and hit it from here. Not quite. The shoulder isn't what it once used to be, but we are very much on the eastern border of Richland County. In this area, we've talked about it in the past about some things, but when you come to this area, you can look forward to some really good fishing. The Mill Creek fishery and Mill Creek runs down through this valley. Yes, there are two Mill Creeks in Richland County. We're fortunate that our settlers didn't call them all Mill Creek, that we didn't have like 20 Mill Creeks in Richland County, because they did put mills or dams for grist mills or sawmills on almost every creek that we have. So there is a second Mill Creek, and there's one of them that runs down the valley here from Bear Valley on down to the Wisconsin River. And in this area, it's really neat and picturesque for UTV, ATV rides. We are just a little bit, just a couple miles away from Oakwood Fruit Farm, which is also a great place to check out. And in the fall, the colors through this area are fantastic. So the subject today of our Why Do We Call It That episode, we already covered Bear Valley, so you already know how Bear Valley got its name. We also talked about St. Kilian's Road, or the St. Kilian's Catholic Church, and how it got its name. So we can only be fair and give the Protestant side also their due time, right? So today we're actually on Brown Church Drive. Now, again, our settlers weren't horribly imaginative when they named some of the roads, because as you can tell behind me, we are on Brown Church Drive because there is a huge Brown church right on Brown Church Drive. Now, really neat story about Brown Church. It's funny, and as a child growing up in Richland County and not far from here, we always heard about it as the Little Brown Church. Well, one thing about the Little Brown Church, it has a steeple on it that is hard. You can't even see it in this video because of technical issues and how microphones and everything work. I couldn't put the camera back far enough to get the mics to work and have all of the church in the view. So you'll have to come here and visit it for yourself, because it is substantial, and the story of the Brown Church is very cool as well. So the story goes that in 1860, there were a lot of settlers had come to the area, mostly English, Irish. There were some others blended in as well. As you know, the Catholics already were settling the area north of us. So that's another important thing to know of the area. It was very obvious that as settlers came to this area, the German Catholics kind of settled the upper part of Bear Valley, and then in the lower areas, it was more the Protestants from Ireland, from England, and from the other European areas, most of those coming from New York, Indiana, or Ohio. Well, they needed a place to worship. So early on, what the settlers did, they met in homes. And so they'd just meet in somebody's home, they'd play instruments, and have a Sunday worship. But early on, they realized we need a cemetery. So really, the Bear Valley Cemetery behind me here at the Brown Church was first. It came first. The cemetery was first started in 1860. The church didn't come along until 1875. So kind of interesting. I've heard people say, well, it's a non-denominational church even then. Well, not true. Not in the classic sense. Non-denominational means there is no denomination involved, right? Well, back in 1875, what happened, the church was actually made up of several different practicing denominational members. So it actually had members who were practicing Methodists. It had Quakers. There were practicing Quakers that were in the congregation. And there also, we know, were Presbyterians as well. So there were some different denominations involved in forming the Brown Church, and we know that the name, so the original name of the church was the Brown Church Union, or the Union Church of Bear Valley. I'm messing that name up, I know I am, but it was a union church, meaning they were bringing denominations together because they didn't have enough of any one denomination to go ahead and build their own church and have it for themselves. But it was involving several different denominations. The church, the cemetery, those were all started by some very familiar names. If you do a little bit of research and kind of think back, I know of these names even as a child, where there were these names were frequent in the valley, but the Burnhams, the Brace family, the Carswell family, also a Shantz family. There were quite a few of them in the area that had originally settled and then stayed here for many, many years. And they were responsible for founding the cemetery and building that original church in 1875. So moving forward to modern day, what's interesting is in 1999 and then throughout 2000, a group formed called the Friends of the Little Brown Church, or of the Brown Church. And that group got together, raised funds, kind of caretook things, and then started to remodel and restore the church. And they did some things inside that are really unique of restoration back to the original church. Modern thing they did do, they added air conditioning and heating, so that was a bonus. They do rent the church out today. You can use it for weddings and other functions. It will seat about 100 people. It is a very impressive church on the inside, and when you come visit, you'll notice the steeple is really tall. It's really up there. So all of this information would not be possible without the help from Julie Carswell Zychek. She is the one that you would contact. I've shared the link above. If you have interest in renting the church for a wedding or a function, they're happy to work with you on that. I hope you enjoyed this episode, but just really interesting how denominations came together and agreed quite well and were able to build their church. So as early settlers came, they had a place to worship here in Bear Valley. So if you're coming down through the area sometime on a UTV trail or you're up at Oakwood, make sure you make the drive down on by. It's a very impressive structure. We really appreciate it when you share these videos. We also appreciate if you like us on YouTube and follow our YouTube channel. I get a lot of questions of, hey, have you covered this location or that location? A lot of times we have. If you go out to our YouTube channel and check it out, we have a full library of all of the Why Do We Call It That episodes that we've done so far. And if you go out there and you see there's one that you really think we should be doing, you just let me know and I'll be happy to do the research and do that for you. That actually is why I'm doing the Brown Church today, was by request. So I hope you enjoyed it. For Richland Center Tourism, I'm Marty Richards. Have a great evening.